Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us in today's webinar event. Welcome, Marhaba, and we are looking forward to have an active participation from all of you as always, and the people who are joining us first time in PMI UAE chapter webinar. We welcome you heartily there, and then we are looking forward to your engagement during the next 1 hour. We will be taking some notes also, so thanks for putting your messages in the chat. We are able to see who is joining from where. That's really good to know. Please put your location as well. That would really help us to understand the diversification of the webinar attendees. And welcome again to all of us. We will start together in a couple of minutes after giving some more people to come in. We see the people joining from Dubai, Abu Dhabi as usual, Sharjah. Okay, so 3 Emirates we already cover. Oh, Holland. So we reach out of the Middle East now. Okay, Oman. Okay, there's another Middle East, GCC, Kuwait, another GCC. Good. Tunisia. Okay, so we reached to Africa now. Good. Doha from Qatar. Florence. Hello, Florence. Budapest. We reached again to Europe. Good. I think we have a lot of people coming in from the different places nowadays. So that's really good to see that we are all sharing the right energy and the diversified perspective to understand and share our knowledge. Lebanon, hello from Lebanon. Hello, Sandeep. Good evening again. And the people who are joining from Europe, I think it's good afternoon for them. Okay, we have reached 1, 2, 3. Magic numbers started running around. Oh, wow. So we reached to Latin America, Brazil. Hello, Abd Ahmed. We'll officially begin at 7:05, guys. Thanks for coming in. Just wait for a couple of more minutes, 2 minutes more at least, so that we have the right number of guys given right opportunity to start from the beginning. Hello, Nadia from Sharjah. Thanks, Sachin, for posting your LinkedIn. Feel free to start engaging yourself. If you want to introduce yourself, sharing your connections with other chapter members or the volunteers around it. And even the webinar audience who are not the chapter members yet, but we encourage them to become one, of course. So today's topic, what we're going to discuss is not something very technical, unlike from the past few webinars where we have been talking about quite a bit of subjects which have been quite relevant. But yeah, on the front of the technical side of the working for the project managers. So we will be introducing our webinar speaker in a couple of minutes, and of course the topic as well. So we are 7:04. We will officially launch at 7:05. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We really thank to you so that you take your time on the busy evenings or afternoons from wherever you're joining, or most probably could be the early evening as well for the people outside Europe could be. Yeah. So we have 150 reached now. Good. I think we are 7:05. So we will officially start now. So to officially begin the webinar series now for today's session, I would like to introduce myself, the people who are joining this webinar first time. My name is Anshul, and I'm your moderator and host tonight on this webinar. I will be joined by my colleague, Amir Parvez, who are working with me at the back end, and the rest of the events team members. Also, I would like to explain some housekeeping notes. We would expect from your full attention on this webinar, which will last near about 1 hour and 15 minutes maximum. Of course, we are going to introduce you to the chapter. We are representing PMI UAE chapter over here. Before we launch our topic, let me just briefly introduce you to what is this chapter is about. And then we will go to the presentation from our speaker as well. Of course, we will keep some time for the Q&A as the part of the session at the end of the chapter, at the end of the communication and the deck, what Victoria is going to share with us, who is our esteemed speaker today. So in the best of our interest, normally we keep the time frame in the line. So I will try to take everybody's question and logically attach to them to get answered by our speaker, but definitely keep them in the Q&A section rather than the chat section. That really helps us to keep it segregated. Okay. So with regard to that question and answers, we will definitely try to answer them. And let me introduce to the chapter now. To all of you and people who are joining it first time, we welcome you again on this series of chapter series. And I will share the screen with you quickly to run through the chapter introduction. Wait a minute, let me just make it full screen for everybody. Yeah. Okay, so we are represented by the Project Management Institute, which is the renowned institute from 1969, get established around with the project managers over there. And now after 50 years later also, it is one of the big source of all the information around project management, one of the largest professional association in the world, globally recognized with the standards and credentials. Chapter also and the PMI itself offers a lot of training accreditation and to the communities. Also, we do a lot of thought leadership and content knowledge sharing. Specifically for the UAE chapter, we are having our own vision, which is saying that empower and influence individuals with the innovative project economy principles to turn ideas into reality. And to achieve that, the mission statement goes like that: to disrupt and create value, driven opportunities to our chapter members and partners, to become agile, innovative, productive in the platform for the growth of project economy. With that in mind, this is our chapter pictures. And of course, we are the chapter run by 100% by volunteers only. Count-wise, we are already reached 3,000 plus, 3,300 in fact a bit, as an active chapter members. We are ranked among the top 5 chapters in PMI EMA region, focusing on the top leading industries and trends. And also we are serving the aspiring community of project managers and certified PMI people in the space of project and program professionals. We dependent on all of you to make our chapter activities as invigorating as possible, and also try to understand that we are all here to serve you better. Here's a chapter board led by Mr. Adil Sultan as a president. Under his leadership, rest of the board directors are also over there who is contributing from their sector perspective. PMI membership and benefits brings you a lot of different things, just like access to PM BOG guide. If you are trying to write a PMI certification in the quick time frame, certification discounts you get as a part of our partners, standards and the career navigator access through the website. Projectmanagement.com is a community access platform. A lot of exclusive events, which we normally does as a part of members, and also the tools and templates and some research reports as well. As a part of the benefits, we are continuing our 2023 benefits in the form of networking and from the perspective of learning, knowledge sharing, career growth, and of course, events. That's why we are doing this webinars as a part of this diversified webinar series. With that in mind, if you want to get in touch with any one of us for the chapter related information, you are very much welcome to visit our chapter website and of social media handles in form of LinkedIn to Facebook to Instagram. All goes there, you name it, we have it. And also the marketing team is doing the great work in order to keep things out and loud there. So that is about chapter. If you want to know about us more, please feel free to touch with any one of us offline as well or through LinkedIn. Now let me quickly go to our speaker. So without dealing too much about who is our speaker, we always know about the speaker is Victoria. She is joining us from London, UK. So very good afternoon to you, Victoria, over there. And she is going to talk about something very simple, but yet very important, how to communicate to influence with impact. Okay. And we are going to learn with her that how to develop our listening skills, how to speak the same language like the normally executive board want to listen, or how to build the bridges with our key management stakeholders, which is definitely the part of any project manager in that sake. And then, of course, you will discover how to influence. Influencing is that skill that doesn't come naturally sometimes, of course. And with the influencing aspect, we need to bring the clarity to your delivery of the messages, and then how concise and summarized you can be to be as effective and as efficient together. So without being more delay over there, Victoria, I would like to introduce you to the floor now, and I think you are free to launch yourself. Go ahead.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for the very warm welcome, Anshel. And thank you so much for everyone joining us here today. I can see we're 180 people. That's fantastic. And it's very exciting to see so many of you here today. I'm really excited to be here, and I can see this topic resonates. It's important for you. And although we're not talking about technical skills here today, communication, the way you influence, will be the difference between you being successful in your projects and perhaps not being able to make headway and make progress with the projects you're working on. So I'm going to share my screen, but we're going to have time, as Anshel mentioned, at the end for questions. So please feel free to put your questions into the Q&A. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. I am in London, the UK, and I am a coach for global leaders who want to elevate and amplify their communication skills. I'm also a trainer, and I work with international teams around the world developing their cultural intelligence. I am the CEO and founder of my business, Culture Cuppa, and I've been working in this business now for almost 9 years. This is my second career, and my first career was 12 years in international brand marketing and management. And that's quite important because everything that I do, everything I coach and train and share on and speak on has its foundations in what I observed myself in that time working in international teams and seeing where the communication used to flow and where sometimes it didn't flow so easily. So that's why I'm very passionate about this topic. I'm a keynote speaker. I'm also the host of a podcast, Cultural Communication Confidence, which, if you're really interested in these topics today, please feel free to come and have a listen to the show. I produce weekly podcast episodes. And I'm a certified coach in cultural intelligence. And that's a little bit about my background and what I do. But I'm going to get you interacting with me and doing some things with me already from the beginning. And we have this topic to communicate, to influence with impact. And I want to know, what does that mean for you? What characteristics do people have who are good at this? What do they do, or how do they behave or act? I want you to add your comments. So go to menti.com. You can enter the code, which is on the screen right now. If you are on a second device, you can use a camera to open up the QR code. And I'm going to move into a different screen just so we can see your contributions as they're coming up on the screen. So what does it mean to you to influence with impact? For example, that might mean to be engaged with the people that you're talking with. So you could write engaged. So feel free to open up menti.com. You can use this code here. You can enter the QR code. And I would love to get your thoughts on this question. Great. Being recognizable, leaving a mark, charisma. Absolutely. That's something that comes up quite a lot. Motivating. Impression, everlasting impression. Yeah, that's a very interesting one. Sometimes the impressions are not just about what we leave when we're in the room, but it's what it is when we're outside the room as well. Everything's moving around, but I'm going to attempt to have a look at what other ones I can see. Meaningful, body language, empower. I can see motivate is coming up quite a lot. Lovely, being clear, aligning with the points, results oriented. Amazing. Wow. There are lots and lots of ideas that you have here. And this is fantastic that you've got so many ideas when it comes to this topic. I'm going to leave that active. You can keep on contributing, and I'll share at the end as well with the others that it can be circulated. But let me come back to my presentation. And I'm really pleased that this topic resonates with you, that you've got some thoughts already about what this means to you and how you want it to help you. And of course, it's not just about your day-to-day work right now. This is also about your professional impression, your reputation within your organization, how people perceive you in relation to career development and your next steps, how they consider you for promotions or for the next steps in your career. So this is an incredibly important topic for us to be talking about. But the question is, are you missing out on vital ways to influence? Well, I think sometimes we really pay attention to what we say. We think about the messages, we think about the words we want to use. But for us to influence with impact, we actually need something else, the missing ingredients, which is how you say it. And there are so many different elements that go into that, but basically speaking, they connect up into two key themes. These are your verbal communication and your non-verbal communication. So verbal communication could be about your voice, how you project your voice, and how resonant and rich it sounds. It also includes elements such as how quickly or slowly you speak, so your pace, the pauses you put into your speaking. Non-verbal communication, I saw somebody mentioned on the poll just now, they talked about their body language. And of course, that is part of it, how we sit or stand. But it's also elements like our hand gestures, our facial expressions, how we use our non-verbal to connect with other people and engage them in what we're saying. So there is a lot more than just what we say, our message. And the challenge when it comes to influencing in your organization may be this. Sometimes when you are in front of the board or in the senior leadership team, they don't always understand the full value that you bring. Perhaps they don't even really fully understand in depth exactly what it is that you're doing. Perhaps you feel this sense that they keep changing their mind and what is required, the scope. And perhaps there's even organizational resistance to change. If you are experiencing this, then this can feel like you're not listened to always. It can feel pretty frustrating, and potentially even that you're in a constant rework loop where you are feeding in ideas, you're trying to influence, you're getting feedback, which means that you need to go away and keep reworking. Now, if you're feeling this, then this is obviously clearly not a great place to be. So we need to think about how we can change the dynamic, how we can move through this so that you are influencing with impact. And the real opportunity is for you to share, to increase your share of voice, because when you do, you're building trust. You're having that sense that the executive board, the senior leadership team are trusting you and absolutely listening to you. It helps you to navigate the challenges when you have hard situations. Maybe you have conflict or disagreement going on. And as I mentioned just earlier, it can enhance your professional reputation, the way that you are perceived, the way that people think about you and talk about you when you're not in the room. This is actually very, very important. So how do we do this? How do we do this? Well, we're going to cover 4 key areas today. The first one is about listening. And maybe that surprises you because I know that sometimes when I talk about communication, people think it's about just purely what we're saying. But remember, communication is a two-way process. It's what we are saying, but it's also what we're receiving. So listening is incredibly important. Then it's about speaking the same language. I don't just mean whether we're talking English or Arabic or Portuguese if you're from Brazil, as I saw somebody here, but it's more than this, speaking the language of the leadership team, of the executive board. It's absolutely about clarity, knowing how you can be clear in your messaging, in the way that you communicate. And it's about how you create impact so that people feel your presence. They feel you as a leader and what you've got to say, and therefore they're paying much more close attention to what you have to bring to the table. So let us start with listen. It starts with listening because of this. I think this quote from Stephen Covey, which is actually a very old quote, but I think still absolutely resonates here today. Seek first to understand than to be understood. This is the point. Before we can start talking, we need and influencing others, we need to understand them, and we can only understand others when we listen first. So I encourage you, as the starting point, to start with listening. Understand the business needs and wants. And actually, needs and wants aren't necessarily the same thing. They can be two separate things. What does success look like to them? Not only in terms of objectives delivered, but also how they're delivered. Notice the language that people are commonly using. What kind of words or phrases are coming up repeatedly? If you can understand what is the common language, then you can start building that into how you're speaking as well. And that is a great way to influence when you're using the same language. And how do we do this? Well, actually, listening is surprisingly challenging. Listening requires us to be really deeply present, to remove the distractions, to put aside our tech, our devices, and be focused on what the person is actually saying. So suspend your assumptions, suspend what you think you know about the situation, and really listen to what is being said to you. You need to be focused on intelligent listening with curiosity. So think about what, be very curious about what the other person is saying. Ask some good quality open questions. And note what I mean by intelligent listening is notice how they're responding to you. There is what they say, but there's also all their nonverbal communication. So notice how they are reacting to you, how engaged they are with you. And I use this phrase, listening with your eyes, to mean that you're not only listening with your ears, but you're observing them, seeing what is exciting to them, what are they particularly passionate about, and what is important to them. And then finally, the last part of listening is really about reflecting back. It's making sure that you've really understood the key points, that they are in line with their understanding as well. This might sound basic, but it is surprising how often listening doesn't happen, and therefore that people are not aligned with what you are trying to achieve. So I think this is really worthwhile spending time on, making sure that you have understood the needs and wants. So it starts with listening. From here, we can then start to speak the same language. And what I mean by this is avoiding tech language, anything that isn't obvious to others in the meeting room. And although you are all probably very deep experts here, some of the language you might use associated with your area may not be obvious to others in a senior leadership team or even, with the executive board. So make sure you're using the language of business, the language that they use, and avoid anything too technical. Likewise, beware jargon. Make sure if you're going to use it that you explain it or everybody check in that everybody has the understanding. And finally, making sure that acronyms are obvious. And that's particularly true, by the way, if you're working in very diverse cultural environments, sometimes acronyms don't translate across different countries. So just make sure that everybody has a common understanding of what you're talking about. My point here is to keep it simple. And although you may have a lot to bring and a lot of information, you want to make sure those points land. You can only influence if others understand you. So make sure you're adapting how you're saying things, not to make it simplified or too basic, but to make sure that it's landing in the way that you intend it. So that's the second point. Speak the same language. The third area is about your clarity. And what I want to share with you here today is my 5 keys framework, which is the framework that I use with my own clients in my programs to help them think about how do they become more clear. It starts with your purpose, which includes your goal and your intention. Now, I'm pretty sure that as a group, you are quite focused on objectives and goals. That is pretty much the bread and butter of what you do. But I don't wonder whether how many of you think about this idea of your intention. What I mean by this is, how is it you want to land things when you turn up in the meeting? What kind of energy are you bringing? Are you aiming for gravitas? Are you aiming for more charisma? Are you aiming for more motivation and inspiration? Really consider that. I don't know if that's a question you've ever asked yourself, but we need to think into what is needed. How are you going to best build the bridges and have the great engagement and relationship with the people in the room? So beyond goals and objectives, think about your intention. I'm very passionate when it comes to communication to think about people, the people that you're meeting, and what it is that they are thinking and feeling and how they're going to be reacting to what you're saying. Now, I suspect that you already think about what they need to know and what they need to do at the end. But that middle piece, the feel piece, how is it you want them to feel at the end? Do you want them to feel excited by this, what you're saying? And do you want them to be giving an immediate yes to what you're presenting to them and get that decision? You think about that question. What is it you want them to feel about you, about what you're saying, your project? And really anticipate that. Think about how you bring that in through what you're saying. I think it's also very important to consider motivations. What's motivating the people in the room that you're talking to? What are they thinking about this topic that you're presenting or talking about? What kind of questions are in their mind? What are their doubts? What are their challenges with what you're saying? If you know the people you're talking to, then you should have a really good sense of what might come up. You can anticipate it. You can think about the answers to those questions. If you spend even just 5 or 10 minutes, depending on the scale of what your presentation or meeting is, then you can be prepared, and that will make you more successful in the way that you influence. And then the final point is a very interesting one, which is about adapting your communication approach and behaviors with cultural intelligence. Now, we're going to talk about cultural intelligence in a little bit more detail very shortly, but to say here, a little bit of an introduction, what this is about is thinking about that you're working in very diverse teams. People will have different expectations about how you are communicating with them. If you want understand what their preferences are for how they like to be communicated with, you can consider what aspects of your own communication style, your own ways of interacting, you're going to adapt to be more successful. From people, we then get into plan. And this is where you're designing the communication. That's about whether you are designing presentation slides, thinking about this, whether you are designing things you need to demonstrate as part of your meeting or presentation. But really think about what is the best way for me to land my point? How can I bring it alive for the people in the room? It might not just be a report that's printed out or a presentation that you're giving. Maybe you need to make it more engaging. Think about what else can you bring to make it interactive, to get people talking during the conversation rather than just you presenting. So consider this. How could you design the communication? Prioritize. Sometimes the challenge is we have so much to say. There is so many points that we have to share, so many points that we want to talk about, but we only have a limited time. In some situations, you may only have 10 or 15 minutes on a very busy, packed agenda. So give yourself the challenge, even if you have a longer period of time, to say, if I could only share 3 points, what would they be? When it comes down to it, what are the 3 most important messages that I need to land here? I think this is a very good discipline so that if you have less time than you anticipated, if you in the first place, you only have a limited amount of time, then this prioritization is incredibly helpful because it keeps you focused. You know how to keep things on the agenda. And if you find that the conversations are moving off topic, you can flag and talk about moving it back onto the agenda as long as the rest of the room is aligned with that. So the 3 points is an incredibly helpful discipline. And it also helps you to think about planning your presentation, planning your meeting, so you know you will focus on those most important areas. And the final point is points. Points the next step. I suspect again that many of you in the room here this evening already do this quite well. You know what the next step or action is that you need from the room, from the people that you're talking to. However, make sure it is clear that it is flagged, that you have given clear timings or deadlines, and that people have the exact action they need to do, whether it's to respond, whether it's to give a decision, a yes, a no-go, and what the timing with that is as well. So there we have it, the 5 Ps: purpose, people, plan, prioritize, and point. Some of these you may be doing already, but I'd like to think there are some new areas for you to really think about and consider as you plan your meetings, your presentations, for clarity, to be able to influence in a way that gets you to the results that you want. Now, clarity is important. And the other important element of influence is your impact. Now, there are lots of different ways that we can build impact. So for this, again, I'm sharing with you one of my frameworks that I do use with my clients, and it is called impact. It starts with I, your intention. I come back to this again because when we are clear about the energy we're bringing, what mode are we in? Are we in this very formal, serious intention mode? Or are we intending to come across in this upbeat, high energy way? You will only know what is right for you based on your personality, based on the topic that you're talking about, so the context, and also the people that you're talking to. But be intentional with that. Think about how you want to be in the room and how you want to project yourself so that people feel you. So that is your intention. More breath. Now, this depends on you, but for some people, particularly if they have a lot to say, perhaps if they're feeling not so confident in certain situations because of the context or the group of people, then we tend to breathe shorter breaths. So what I'm talking about here is sitting or standing tall, thinking about taking those full breaths, making sure that you can allow your breath to flow. So this also allows your voice to be rich and resonant, so you can speak clearly, loudly, and people really feel the impact of your voice. Key is prepare your energy. This is particularly for those of you who are facing more challenging situations, perhaps are feeling less confident in certain contexts. Then I would absolutely guide you to prepare your energy. There is a fantastic TED Talk by Amy Cuddy, which absolutely demonstrates this, where she talks about before you are going out into the meeting or doing the presentation in private, in the restroom, or if you're offline before you go online, aligning your energy by taking a physical movement. And she calls this the power pose. And what that looks like is effectively standing like a superhero, hands on hips, very firmly on the ground, feeling strong and powerful. This energy piece is something, again, I'm not sure how many of you think about this, but this is really important when you want to come across in a certain way and to ground yourself, feel calm, feel good about moving into the situation, particularly when it's challenging. So you can try that out next time. Prepare your energy. Action is about your body language. How are you standing? How are you sitting? How do you come across with presence like a leader? Just by the way we're standing or sitting, this can be influencing others' perceptions of you. So consider that. Think about how you use your hand gestures. You'll probably notice that I use a lot of hand gestures. equally, people who are powerful speakers, leaders, people who talk on a TED stage, they know how to use their hands effectively to underline their message, to emphasize what they're saying, and to connect with others. And that is the next one. C is connect. Connect is how we engage people. When you want to influence them, you need to engage with them. And we can do that again through elements of our non-verbal communication. So consider your eye contact. How comfortable are you making eye contact? And whether it's looking around a room or in a virtual room, looking at the camera and really connecting to others. This is a skill to be able to connect in a way that feels calm and comfortable and really engages people in the conversation, even if you're talking to a very large room. So eye contact is part of that. The way that you smile and demonstrate your warmth or your strength of feeling for something. Again, your facial expressions can be very important for this. And the final part of impact is your tone of voice. I've spoken a few times about voice. I think it's a really important point to know how to use your intonation, again, to emphasize your points, to underline key words or phrases that are important. When we know how to use our voice effectively, this is, again, a very engaging way to influence other people. So there we have impact. These are probably elements that maybe you have not thought about so fully before, but I think they're really critical if we want to have presence in the way that we're influencing and we want to connect to people and engage them with what we say. So impact, intention, more breath, prepare energy, action, connect, and tone of voice. And I'd love you to try that out in your next meetings and presentations and see how this goes for you. Now, I mentioned cultural intelligence earlier on, and I suspect that many of you are working in very diverse teams, very multicultural teams, potentially with multicultural clients and customers. And maybe your career has been very multicultural. Maybe you have been working in different locations. I know we've got a very diverse group here today joining from many continents, let alone many countries. And I think you would probably all agree that when we're working globally, what we really want to do is we want to connect well. We want to find ways to collaborate effectively. And the way that we do this is through building great rapport and great trust. Now, this is fantastic in situations where we can spend time together with teams and get to know them and find ways that we can understand how other people think and what motivates them. But clearly, so many of us are working remotely in teams with people that we never meet. So we need to be incredibly skilled at this, thinking about how do we connect in the best way with people from different cultures around the world. I believe that cultural intelligence is really critical to help us succeed. And this definition of cultural intelligence, sometimes known as CQ, I think is very powerful. I'm just going to read it out. It is the capability to function and relate effectively in culturally diverse situations. If I just break that down, it's a capability. So cultural intelligence, the way that I do it with the Cultural Intelligence Centre, is about measuring your cultural intelligence capabilities. We can assess them, we can understand your progress with them over time. It's also more than just functioning and operating. It's about how you're relating to other people, building those connections and relationships. And it's applicable everywhere, wherever we find ourselves in culturally diverse situations, which, to be honest with you, is everywhere. Even if we only work in one location, we often are working with very diverse teams. At this point, I'm going to get us to do a bit more interactivity, and I would love for the poll to be launched, please, because we're going to be exploring the myths of cultural intelligence, and I'd love to get your views on this. So this poll is you just choose true or false, whether you agree or disagree with this, okay? So it says the more international travel, the higher the CQ, so the higher the cultural intelligence. If you agree with that, tick true. If you think it's false, tick that. The higher the technical competence, the higher the CQ. Again, say true or false. And the higher the emotional intelligence, EQ, the higher the CQ, cultural intelligence. I would love now if you could go and vote on that, whether you think those statements are true or false. I'll give you a few minutes to do that, and then we'll look at the results at the end. Can I check the poll is fully launched because nobody's voting at the moment? Okay, it is launched. Okay, that's absolutely fine. Lovely, thank you. It's just I can't see the votes. So I'll just give you a minute or two to vote on it, and then hopefully we can share the results and see the results. Great. That's great. Thank you for voting. So as I can't see the votes, could somebody from the PMI team let me know when a majority have voted and it's ready to, I'll look in the chat and it's ready to demonstrate the results. I don't know if you can share the results on the screen.
Yeah, Victoria, we are going to do it for you.
Okay, thank you.
I think Amir is doing it for us. Give me a minute.
Thank you.
I believe there is some glitch over there. Meanwhile, we can continue. Meanwhile, he will just bring it back.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. No problems at all.
Yeah,
Thank
here
you.
is
Oh,
the
and now I can see it.
came. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Now I can see the results. Excellent. So hopefully everybody else can see these results, but if not, I'll read them out. So thank you for voting. We had the first one, the more international travel, the higher the cultural intelligence. So vast majority of you said 85% said that was true, and 15% of you that said that it was false. Now that's a really interesting one because it can be true, but it's actually not a direct correlation. I want you to imagine about a situation where somebody is going on a business trip, and what they're doing is they're going in a taxi from the airport to the hotel. They stay the night at this international chain, which is a global chain found anywhere around the world. They go to the office, they spend time with their team, and then at the end of the day, they leave from the office by taxi straight back to the airport and back home. In that situation, that person hasn't had much exposure to culture. If they are perhaps not open to learning about other cultures, then they're not going to pick much up. So the point is here in number one is that if you travel, it doesn't necessarily make you more culturally intelligent. It might be true if you have the openness and the curiosity, but it doesn't necessarily correlate directly. Okay, let's look at the second one. The higher the technical competence, the higher the cultural intelligence. 33% of you said that was true and 67% said it was false. This is quite interesting because obviously many of you here have very high technical competence. Actually, this one, according to the research, is false. So majority voted false. And the reason why is that even if you are deep expert in what you do, it doesn't necessarily make you culturally intelligent. Again, that's much more about your influences around your openness to other cultures and learning. And then the final one, is a very interesting one whenever I do this poll. The higher the emotional intelligence, the higher the cultural intelligence. 81%, a large majority, said this was true. 19% said it was false. Well, this is a very intriguing one because, in fact, what this is false. The correlation is not direct. Now, let's be clear, emotional intelligence is incredibly important. Of course it is. And we all need really good emotional intelligence skills. In fact, what I've spoken about a lot today around nonverbal communication, decoding what other people are thinking or feeling, requires your emotional intelligence. However, the way we express that emotional intelligence will vary around the world. The way that we express our emotions and interpret those is culturally driven. And if I give you two quite extreme examples, hopefully this will bring this to life for you. There is a cultural value which is about expressiveness. And for some cultures, they value neutral expressiveness. That means it is much better to be more in control of your emotions, not to be strongly showing your emotions in any way through what you say or how you say it. On the other hand, for some cultures, having really high levels of expressiveness is incredibly important. It's critical to demonstrate your strength of feeling for something, your passion, your warmth, and demonstrate to others that you are engaged with them. Now, I think about the cultures of some of the people I've worked with around the world, some of the teams, some of the individuals. I think about Japan and I think about Italy and how people expressed emotional intelligence in those countries. They are quite different. So emotional intelligence is important, but it has a cultural element to it. We need to understand that the way we interpret and decode in emotional intelligence must be seen through a cultural lens. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for voting on that chat. And I really enjoyed exploring that with you. So these are the common myths of cultural intelligence. But when we talk about cultural intelligence, what do we actually mean? How do we improve it? Well, normally I'd be doing half day, full day training with teams to help them understand this. But I'm very happy here today to provide a short introduction overview to what the 4 key areas of cultural intelligence are. So it starts with CQ or cultural intelligence drive. This is your level of interest, persistence, and confidence in culturally diverse situations. Now, this is a fascinating one because I know that when I'm talking to groups like yourselves, that many of you will have very high levels of interest in multicultural working, in working with others from different regions of the world. However, particularly when I think about you as a group and thinking about how you influence, your persistence, your confidence when others are reacting to you in ways that you're not expecting is quite important. Realizing that others have maybe very different communication approaches to you in the way that they're saying yes and no, in how directly or indirectly they express themselves. And so your CQ drive is measuring not only your interest levels, your curiosity, but also that persistence piece and your confidence piece, particularly when things are challenging. So it starts there. Then it moves into CQ knowledge. Of course, we need to understand how are cultures similar and different. And there is a huge amount of research out there. In my work, I use a set of 10 cultural values to help with this. But we also need to get beyond simplistic stereotypes and saying everybody from this one country is like this, or everybody from, for example, the UK is like this, because that's just simply not true. We are all individuals. Some of you, I'm sure, will have multiple cultural influences on you. You're true global citizens who've lived in different regions of the world. So that's why we do a CQ assessment to understand ourselves, understand what are our own specific preferences, and then we can put that in the context of a team as well and get the team picture. Also, it's not only what makes us different, but it's what makes us similar as well. So recognizing there are things that unite us, not only things that make us different. But knowledge by itself is not enough. That's where we then need to move into CQ strategy. And this is your awareness and your ability to plan, to think ahead. What might come up? How can I influence in this situation when others might have a different communication approach to me? How do I adapt myself to more successfully connect and engage? This will help you to be more successful in the way that you influence. And then finally, from CQ strategy, you then move into CQ action. And this is where you put everything into play. You understand what aspects of your own verbal and nonverbal communication, how you express yourself, what is it you're going to adapt and change, which is in line with your personality and your values. All of this is really about how you create those connections, how you create the relationships that will help move you through and make sure that your projects are delivered. This is the cultural intelligence capabilities. We have covered a number of different topics really quite fast here today. And what I wanted to do was really give you an introduction to these topics, a light touch introduction so you can understand some of the key areas for you to reflect on and think about. Not only have we talked about cultural intelligence and the opportunity for that to help you connect with others, we've also spoken about these areas to help you influence with impact. Thinking about the way that you listen first and really understand the needs of others, what it is they have in their heads, what does success look like to them, and connecting to that so you can adapt the way that what you say and how you express it. Speaking the same language, making sure you're adapting so that you are speaking the same language as the board, as the senior leadership team. Clarity, using the 5 Ps, helping you to make sure that your message lands in a way that is crystal clear. And creating impact through your presence, through how you show up, your intention, your energy, your breath, your voice, all of these elements and aspects of your nonverbal communication to make sure people feel you and feel the way that you are influencing them. I hope this has been really valuable for you here today, and I know we're about to move into Q&A very shortly. The final part before we do that is that I'm just going to extend an invitation here today. If people would like to get my personal feedback on their communication skills, then I'd like to share this invitation for attendees or anybody who's watching the replay for a free communication skills assessment if you book your meeting by the 25th of February 2024. And that'll be an opportunity to receive my feedback on your current situation. You fill out a short questionnaire so I can understand more about what it is you do and what communication challenges you might be facing. And the idea is to help you move forward. So if that's something that would be of interest to you, please feel free to message me on LinkedIn. You can connect or follow me or message me over there. My personal profile is Victoria Rennoldson. Great, so thank you so much. I know we're moving into Q&A. So would you like me to, should I stop sharing my screen, Anshul, and then perhaps we can just see what's come up then?
Yeah, in fact, indeed. First of all, Victoria, that was wonderful. Okay, it was short, precise, impactful, and of course, making all ourselves sitting on our toes, because being different project managers, program managers, this is something that which is not being taught naturally in the formal education, right? That most of the time people learn it on the MBA grads, and sometimes you get into these kind of separate coaching sessions where you being told how to be sensitive around and how to be managing your piece of body language. But we have a couple of questions, but I invite more people to post the questions if you have. We have a couple of minutes left, so I will pick it up the questions. In fact, I have few from myself as well, but I will definitely give priority to the people who are with us. So starting with Benil. Benil has asked 2 questions together in a way that more importantly is asking that how to stay calm when things are not moving in the direction what we want, especially in the board meetings, and how to do any kind of attempts to stay positive, in terms of exercise that way. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, these are great questions. I think when things are not going the way you want them to, it can feel like you start to panic a little bit, that you worry about, okay, how do I get this back on track? So I think the first thing you have to do is be deeply, deeply present in the moment. You have to not try and go, well, what if this and what next and how am I going to just really be present in the moment. Take a couple of really deep breaths while still listening to the conversation and know that you have the skill set to move through, that you will find a solution. Now, it might be that you can find that solution in the meeting, but also bear in mind, you might not find it in the meeting. You might need to take time outside the meeting and then loop back in. So remember, communication isn't just about what happens in these big meetings. It might be that you then need to take away some thinking and reflection and loop back in with individuals. Sometimes this is much more impactful than trying to influence a large group together, particularly if you've got very different viewpoints going around the room and people are maybe contradicting each other and it's all getting very confusing. So, have the confidence, I suppose, in that moment to take it, understand what's being said, make sure you've got those noted, and then if you need to, and the context and situation allows, ask them for time to reflect and maybe to pick up with some individual conversations to influence this way. So that's maybe one idea that might help with this, but definitely keep calm means, staying with the moment, not trying to get kind of running away with, okay, this would mean this and this and this. You need to stay present. So that was the first part of the question. And then I think the other one was about staying positive. Is that right, Anshul?
Yeah. What simple
Yeah,
exercises we can attempt to remain positive in that same context?
absolutely. This for me is actually probably more of a daily practice. It's actually about this intention piece. How do you want to show up in these meetings? Like, how do you want to be? And I want you to visualize the best possible outcome. Imagine success. What would that look like? How are people reacting to you? And I want you to really think about that. If you're somebody who likes writing things down, you could write some sentences about what would that look like? How would the room be reacting to you and how would that feel? So some kind of projecting forward, but before the meeting can be helpful, and that visualization of success. If you're running up to a really big meeting, you might do that every day for a week before the meeting to get you in the positive frame of mind. And then absolutely the power pose I talked about, get your energy and power in place before you walk into that room. Do that in private, of course, before you walk in. But the idea is you're getting into your kind of strength. You're reminding yourself you're good at this, you've got it, and you can do it.
Good, thanks. So reinforcement is one important thing that we need to carry with ourselves. Thanks so much. We have another question from Sana at the moment. It's about like more important body language around the situation where she's telling that I noticed that during her calls I cannot maintain a poker face. That's one, and I nod too much. How can I work on it? I speak well, I express well, but this nodding is no control on.
Okay, so I think that that's understanding this. So you find it hard not to overreact to what's being said. So you can't keep it hard to keep the poker face. Yes, I mean, I think that's challenging. If you're somebody who's very expressive and used to kind of either reacting in the moment by nodding, or perhaps if you don't understand something, frowning like this, then it can be challenging. What I want you to think about is imagine your body language is a big volume dial. And I want you to imagine that you are going to turn it down like one or two. So just try and turn it down a little bit. You're not trying to do the opposite of what you normally do. That would be difficult and would feel very out of line with who you are. But you just want to turn it down a little bit. If I give you a personal example, I'm very, very expressive. I talked about working with Japanese clients. I know when I work with Japanese people, I have to turn down my expressiveness. I'm too much in when working with people who are less expressive than me. So I try and just control myself. I try and use less of my hands by holding them in front of me. And I generally try and just make sure that I'm sitting more still or standing more still. I hope that helps. Oh, I think you're on silent, Anshul.
here I go. People are unable to sometimes say that again from Sana, people are able to maintain such normal expression so gracefully, but she cannot. But as you said, means everybody is not same, and we need to first of all accept it. Okay, unlike you, I am totally different. Means I cannot nod. That's another problem, so everybody is in a uniqueness position. We need to just take it from there, how we can maintain that composure somehow. We have a lot of questions now started coming, and seriously we are 8 to 1. But Suraj is asking that how get one of the board members buy-in when there is a conflict of interest.
If that means a conflict of excuse me. Excuse me. If you mean a conflict of interest within the board, I think this is where individual conversations can be really helpful, where you might need to influence people separately from each other. I think sometimes some of the challenges of influencing the board as a group is that they're in very different spaces. So actually, it might need you to go before the main meeting to influence individuals, engage them in conversation, find out what's on their mind, see if you can find a common meeting point that then you're bringing to the board altogether. This might be one way forward. So try that out, see if that kind of helps you with the conversations. I think if you're already experienced a situation, as it sounds like you might have done, and you've come away and thought, okay, so how do I move through this? Then the important thing is to pick up those individual conversations afterwards, see if you can kind of find ways through. And, if you've got a particular point of view about what needs to happen, what is the right way to go, see if you can gather the support of others within the board that can potentially influence at that level, sort of peer to peer. That is another way to go.
I think that was a really good piece of advice, Victoria, there. Interesting one I see is from Suhail. How can we hide the negativity we feel during the meeting?
Okay, that's a great question. I love that.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So look, let's be real. We do sometimes feel negative about what's being said to us, about what people are sharing with us. But I think this is a skill. If you're somebody who's very expressive, then you have to be aware of that. And by the way, this is great. You're already aware. Therefore, you need to really work on it. Be just very present in the moment. Think about how you can demonstrate listening and be curious, ask questions, even if you don't think you agree with what's being said, and just reflect back understanding. I think if you can change the idea of negativity into, okay, I'm going to go into this with my listening attitude. Let's see whether I can learn something here. So I think it starts with that awareness piece, but then try and turn it into more of a listening idea rather than I'm feeling negative about this.
I will take one more question because we are running short of time, but let me try it out. How can I hide my worry when I'm waiting for it? So I'm seeing a couple of them. I'm just trying to pick up one which I can find it much more complex one to get it answered. Just give me a couple of seconds. Okay, that's another related to one personality effect. But yeah, I think that this one could be good one. For example, that Vipin is asking now is that I'm a good listener. Many a times I find people keep raising their fingers and also the tone, right?
Okay.
During the meeting or during the conversations. I generally do not reply in the same way, but this troubles me a lot. And later, somehow I throw it back. So how do
Okay.
we avoid such situations and the control or response to reacts, whatever you want to think?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting question. So it sounds like a team that are used to responding. Perhaps it's about aggressive sort of tone might be too strong, but they're used to kind of expressing displeasure or frustrations or disagreement in quite a strong way. In this situation, if you're aware of it, then I think it's great that you're not responding immediately to it. However, it feels like it's a big effort for you to control it, and then suddenly it might ends up being you reacting. again, I think breath is going to be your friend here. So take a breath, have the intention that you are choosing to respond, and recognize that it's not your way. You have a different way of doing things, and that you will be much more effective in the way you influence if you're not meeting them at that level, but instead you are responding in your own way, in the way that is calm, measured. And by the way, like, we're not saints. So this is not possible necessarily all the time, but with more practice, with really taking the breath, an extra moment and pause before you respond to something, you can just remind yourself, I'm going to keep myself quite cool and calm in this situation and respond calmly. And let's see if we can do this. So that would be my advice in this situation where things are getting more heated.
Thank you so much. That's a really valuable piece of advices and messages you got it communicated through to Victoria. I think before we, of course, my takeaway from the session would be the highlight for me from what I was telling me is that the intention, you spoke about intention, intention beyond the purpose. So when we enter, I think that remains very important and crucial, that what intention you are carrying at your subconscious level, because sometimes we get carried away only with messaging, only with
Yes.
clarity, only with body language. But the subconscious mind intentions play the role at the background, and they come out in different subtle ways during and after and in parallel at times.
Yes.
Right. And that is very hard things to really understand at times. But that was the key moment for me over there. But a really wonderful session, Victoria. I invite the people who have been asking the question. I am apologize for not taking up your question in that way. Don't take it to your heart. Feel free to connect to the Victoria over the LinkedIn. She's there to give you the help over there. I think for the closure part of the webinar now, I would like to thank to all of you to participate and post your great questions to us. A good shout out to the friends and marketing team who are doing the wonderful job in putting relevant information on the social media and the website side. Definitely, I would like to mention two important things for the members of the chapter here. We have created a WhatsApp group, guys, and the people. So definitely, you need to be a member of the chapter in order to be get added to the WhatsApp group. And secondly, for claiming the PDUs, ensure your PMI account has the right mobile number given there. Otherwise, it really creates an issue in issuing the PDUs to that. So make sure that your number in the PMI account is correct, and of course, join the chapters in order to get added to the WhatsApp group. And we're doing a lot of things in the WhatsApp group over there. So that is the way we want to carry it ahead. And then we would not say goodbye before saying thank you to the rest of the chapter volunteers who have been doing the great job behind these successful webinars, including the team from membership, outreach, volunteering, finance, and governance. So this is the closure part of it. And then, of course, until the next webinar, together with my colleague behind the camera, Amir, and Pervez and events team, this is Anshul taking you a wonderful evening ahead. Thank you for your participation and God bless. Thanks, Victoria, for your participation as well.
Thank you very much for inviting me here this evening. It's been fantastic to join your brilliant questions and really enjoyed the participation and the engagement. So thank you.
Same here. Pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.